the unemployment is up to 30 million, something like that is unemployed. And so when you look at who are protesting, that's out there protesting about the economy, it's not a lot of us. There's not a lot of who's protesting. I mean, we out there, but it's not a lot. And you look at it and you wonder, why are these people is out there putting their life in danger just because they want to go back to work? Now, we all want to go back to work. But me, myself, I want to go back when it's safe, that we have gotten to a point where you see a decline. And I don't believe, from my standpoint, that we have gotten there yet. So, and then you hear the guy, Stephen Moore, one of Trump guys, compare the struggle of white America, the people who want to go back to work, to Rosa Parks fighting for a seat on the bus, equality, the right to sit where she wanted to sit on a bus, right? And then they come out and say they don't want handouts. They don't want any handouts. But now you're forcing people to go back to work. Now, we ain't the only one that's out of job. We ain't the only one who wasn't getting furloughed. Right? And we ain't the only one getting government assistance.
Right.
But now they want to label it getting handouts and comparing a struggle to Rosa Parks. And so, and these are the same people that some of these banks have given loans to.
Yeah.
Because a lot of that, for some people, is because what you look like while you're not getting these loans. See, I just hit y'all with that. I saw eyes come up. Think about it. I know some folk that got legit business, legit par. And they much rather give them my money to a business that it needed than give it to them who needed it. Who needed it. Now, where are we as a nation that would do something like that intentionally? And they won't call it because they got a connection with the banks. Now, I know we got to do everything what y'all brothers laid out. Y'all laid it out, and it was connection. That's what it is. We have to do that. We have to be on the up and up and up. We can't be trying to do all the other stuff, and then we don't count. In the end, we want the loan for those who ain't doing right. But I guess my argument is always for the ones who are doing right. And they not getting their due. And they will be the ones who are not opening their doors when it's all said and done.
Mhm.
How do we combat that?
My take, but this is, I would say this is more of a factual base, that in response to the CARES Act and all the money that was available to small businesses and everything else, they rushed it too fast without establishing some form of proper infrastructure on how to disperse the funds. And so one of the criteria that prevented people from applying is if you had an active business bankruptcy or personal bankruptcy. And that was the only thing that prevented anyone from applying. In addition to you having less than 500 total employees. And you had to identify, if you identified as a franchise, you could not apply for the loan. But the thing is that because there was no structured guidance, everything was happening, and then as things were rolling out that day, there was an automatic approval process. The underwriters looked at the application, looked at the payroll records. If the payroll records are verified based on the percentages and how they were calculating the loans, if all that matched up and then they determine the maximum loan amount, then they received the funds. No matter how much money that those institutions received, because again, there was no set criteria, no minimum, no maximum on what's to be done. And so the misunderstanding came from is that again, we have legit businesses and things like that, but even having legit business and doing things the right way, if you don't do it timely, it affects you too. So we may have several institutions doing legitimate businesses, paying their sales tax, paying their income tax and everything else, but maybe on the brink of, having to wait on their CPA, which their CPA might not be operating, effectively. So then they don't get their stuff done in time because the person that they contracted to help them isn't worth a damn. But at the end of the day, none of that really mattered in terms of this loan, because even with applying, they wasn't asking for any paperwork up front. You just applied, and if it was under the first come first serve, then they gave you money within a week, just on the strength of that. So right now, because they gave out so much money, and then some of those businesses, although there were a few large businesses that gave back the money, there were still some businesses out there that received $5, $10, $20 million even, that's not going to return that money, that hasn't returned that money. And they don't have to.
No.
But with other businesses that cannot get access to this capital or anything like that, I think if their doors get shut down, it's based on them not being able to create not other revenue, but other relationships. And so, again, as I said earlier, it's a blessing and a curse. The blessing comes in is that you're forced to talk with people. You're forced to sit down at a table and talk with someone. You might have shared expenses, like if there's two Black businesses in one building, but they have different offices and stuff like that, maybe they come together and start sharing their expenses. Or maybe they out of the same building, and then they paying one landlord, and then they can't operate at a certain level, then again, coming together to share those expenses, yet not being open, but they're not, failing completely.
No.
But that's beyond race, gender, nationality, anything of that sort. It's just a matter of administration not having a proper structure before they rolled out all this money to the SBA. So with the second batch of funds, they're trying to be a little bit more regulated in this application process to keep other large businesses that are still in the queue, because there were still millions of businesses that applied that did not receive the funds because, again, the funds ran out, but they done everything the right way. But you can't look at it like, oh, I'm gonna get this business, and I'm not gonna get this business or anything like that. It's just a matter of first come, first serve, who was in line, who had their paperwork together, who did this. They may receive something or they may not. And it's just what it is. I mean, it's the failure of the administration.
Yeah. This is this brother in Baltimore. He's been in business for over 20 years. And he has applied for the PPP the very first day that it was put out that he can do it. And he hasn't gotten that. He also applied for the other loans that's out there. The other loans that's out there, the economic injury disaster loan, that's another one that he's applied for that. And also, not only him, but everyone that's in the area where he's from. He called it Black Wall Street of Baltimore. And none of them had any success with that. And according to him, I'm gonna read an article I'm gonna read something from him. It said Terrence Dickerson is the owner of Terry Cafe, a restaurant in Baltimore that is embedded in the local community and offers food, music, and arts to its clientele. He applied for the Paycheck Protection Program the first day it opened, but it still is waiting for relief. And those other ones as well. All right. It says, at his cafe, a community-focused restaurant offering Southern comfort and soul food, along with an arts event space, Dixon has been trying to pivot with time since the controversy pandemic took hold. He's increased delivery operations and tried to get the hang of Instagram and social media marketing, but sales have still plummeted. Dixon is well aware of the numerous other programs in which he did. All right. He said, I am tired of hearing about the money. He said, I want to see the money. This guy, he said, for over 20 years, banks, they've been messing around him around. Right? And the total in this article, for those who want to read it later, it says, why are so many Black-owned small businesses shut out of the PPP loan? And I guess that's what we are. Why are they shut out? I mean, all these folks is not having a problem with their paperwork.
I think it just goes back to what I was saying earlier, man, that you have to factor in these disparities. You have to factor in that there are banks that are prioritizing who they lend to and who they don't, and who they lend to first. And then, like I said, who they lend to first, it has a lot to do, like I'm saying, what's in those investment boards, the people that's making the decisions and stuff. And so quite naturally, they're going to lend to their good paying customers than, than someone who just has an account with them. So it goes to those disparities that, hey, I mean, it was to be expected, once they start releasing these funds and stuff, that I don't know why we get our hopes up, because we know this system, history has shown us that this system, that these institutions and stuff has never fully worked in our favor. And so we're reaching a point now, man, that we just gonna have to start building our own, or appreciating our own tables instead of trying to, get a bite to eat off someone else's table. And so I think we'll be fooling ourselves that there's not any disparities. And we need to recognize those disparities as well that exist and find ways to get around them. But they are there. I mean, when you read a report a couple of days ago that says that 90% of minority businesses won't receive relief funds. And that's the thing. You got a lot of practice. I mean, there are some banks that are, fairly, as Mike would say, that they are fairly doing it. But then there are some banks that are prioritizing and intentionally prioritizing.
Chase is one of those that they got in trouble maybe a few months ago for overlooking minorities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, that's, like I said, that's to be expected. I mean, that is to be expected. If you got like 90% of the representation of these investment boards at these banks and their leadership structures, if 90% of them don't represent me, or don't look like me, or don't look like people, don't look like us, then there's a greater chance that stuff that affects you in your communities won't get discussed at the table in those decision making, the table of decision making. So this is something that, yes, I encourage people to have their books in order, encourage people to alleviate as much as you can, alleviate anything that won't cause you to not get looked at. It's like this example. I went to school and I got my bachelor's in accounting. Then I went and got my master's in accounting. And then one of the reasons that I got it is because that when I go apply for any type of job, that they can't say that I wasn't qualified, or they can't say that I didn't have the educational background. That they will have to, if they're gonna not hire me, it's gonna have to be because of something else. That's one of the things. So I encourage businesses and stuff to have their stuff in order, to do it right, pay your taxes, do what you need to do to be fiscally sound. Because when you go to those banks, then they can't say that you didn't have your taxes paid up. They can't say that you didn't have X, Y, and Z lined up. They can't say that you wasn't here on time, or you wasn't in line. Then you can say that. Then you can say it's because of something else. Because I have everything, and so don't give them, because they'll do it. They'll find an excuse to do it. I give this example and bring it back around to what we're talking about. I was in a job when I was going through a job interview, and one of the questions that I asked the panel, that, okay, what is one of the things that you see or one of the things that this position requires that that you wish that I had. And they all said, yeah, you got everything, there's nothing that we see, we wouldn't be interviewing you if you wasn't qualified to do this and stuff. And then one of the, that was a consensus, but then one of them kicked back, was like, yeah, I think that you're too textbook.
Mm-hmm. No.
So that's what I'm saying. It's always going to, when I'm saying that there's always going to be something that you're going to be disqualified from, that's going to disqualify you,
Yeah.
So I just think that it's time to start embracing our own tables.
Yeah.
And stop trying to sit at these other tables, because a lot of these other tables ain't fair. And when it goes back to these lending when this thing first came up, and I'm like, yeah, there's going to be some disparities. And so I'm not surprised by these reports that's coming out. I'm not surprised by the guy that's been doing it right and has been in line and has went to X, Y, and Z, that he still is not able to gain funds and stuff. I'm not surprised about it. So it's just the nature of the beast, man, in this American system that we still have to fight through. But unless we start getting more of us on these investment boards, unless we start growing our own financial institutions, supporting our own Black businesses, small Black businesses and minority businesses and stuff, then we're going to continue to continue to be faced with these challenges.